Question 4. I can't remember where I got this one from, so apologies. If
Ryan made this up.
This is actually my question.
Yeah, Ryan wants to know something, was too scared to ask, so he's roped it into agony ants, man.
So, research shows that PhD students initially inspire to remain in academia and become professors, lecturers, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right. But this disappears over time. Some reasons put forward for this is they become disillusioned with academia, and also the impossibility of the job market. What do you think is the biggest turn-off for people who start off in academia but then go, you know what, not for me?
It's multifactorial.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you think it's one reason, or do you think a lot of reasons are equally as...
A lot of reasons are equally as plausible. I don't know what your take is, Belly. I think a big thing is people become a disillusioned with what the actual earning capacity is. I think they have these fake ideas around what a professor might actually earn when they're 18, 19, 20. And then when they get to 25, 26, you know, maybe they finish the PhD and they get off with a postdoc wage, and then, you know, you start looking at the grades. It's the things you look into as you get a bit older. You don't really tend, unless you're really switched on. I know I fucking wasn't at 18. You look at these things, but as you get a bit older, you're like, what? Like, if I go to industry, I can earn 20k on top of what would take me 20 years minimum. To become a top professor. Minimum, yeah. Like, so I've got to wait 20 years to get to professorship level. You know, I might be respected in this research here. I might be really passionate about it. But my actual earning capacity is 30 grand off someone who works for 5 years after they've got the doctorate and ends up on more of that. And it's so I think that's a big one. I'm not sure what your take is on the earning capacity of actual academia.
So I think one for me is it's not just limited to higher education, but also just like secondary education and that type of thing. Is like years ago, being a teacher or a lecturer or a head teacher or something used to be this job where people would do it and be like, within a community, you'd be like this well-paid, respected individual. Whereas now, because public sector pay has been hampered back so long, it's now, as you say, it's becoming to the point where we grow up, I think, especially our generation, still grow up thinking, people go work for in a uni, must be great pay. And then when you get there and you, as you say, when you learn about it, you go, oh,
just a bit underwhelming, and it's a bit like...
So people become, I think, the pay side, if you're pay orientated, I think is one side. Because I think people, especially the way modern education works, people see it as go up ladder, get more money. Yeah. That's why people do it. And then you get people who do it like academia because they enjoy academia. And then I think they're very two distinct groups of people.
Yeah. I'm personally not... I'm not really money orientated, because it's a general question. That is definitely the biggest, a lot of big put off people. I think another thing that puts people off is, I think before you get into a PhD, you've got like these rose tinted glasses around the realities of what doing a PhD is. I think you maybe think it's a lot more group. I don't know why. You just think it just seems to be a bit more glamorous than it actually is.
Like you're going to be a band of researchers
fighting the greater cause and like getting the goods done. And then at some point you realise you're sitting on your own in an office or at home or in a coffee shop with a laptop, knackered, with on your 10th coffee, not really knowing what the fuck you're writing. People are pressuring you for shit, deadlines, and you know they're coming, and then it's like a never-ending stream of shit you've got to do. You get rid of one thing, and then like you think, that actually hasn't relieved me at all, because I know there's another big pile of 10, and then you're like, oh, I'm getting through this list here, but more people, someone just keeps pushing shit in the other end of the fucking list and adding stuff on, and it can become a bit never-ending. And I think people might think, I think sometimes think, and I know we've had conversations about it, like, if this is what it is,
if this is
academia,
a blueprint,
if it's this never-ending list of things I've got to be doing, and there's no like relief, maybe it's not for me. Because you got to think, people who do like a normal 9 to 5, they get to work, they work hard for whatever how many hours it is, and then at 5 o'clock they can shut off and they go home and they forget about it. But because it's your project, it's your baby, it's your work, no one else is doing this by you, you never shut off, man.
No, you don't.
Even if you go on holiday away, I check my emails. I've been told by my supervisor to stop replying to emails. I was in Glastonbury and like was replying about it, and she went like, "Can you please stop replying to me?" She went, "I didn't want to reply from you. I just sent you it, so it was there."
But like you get it's this weird kind of like obsession thing where you're like you're always thinking about like you'll be sat there watching telly and you go, "Oh, I could do this coding now." That'd be meaning to do. Yeah, I could write this up.
I could or even just something simple as an email comes through. I've got to reply now.
I could do that now and then I don't have to. Yeah.
Because it's your baby, but if it was just a company you're working for, you're like, fuck that, I'll reply tomorrow, man.
So I think
talking to them.
That really, I think, adds to the disillusionment with academia. Like, I've become disillusioned with academia to the point where I thought it was this whole, as we were saying, like fighting a good fight thing.
Yeah.
I still think academia is for me, personally, because I like the freedom you can get with it. I also enjoy the work you can get with it. I know it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I think the quality and type of work you do, like, you'd never be able to get anywhere else. Like, you can, but like the variety, what you can do.
More difficult to find.
Yeah,
probably.
like, and then like what you can do from one project to a different project varies so much that it provides variety in that respect. Like,
you're never doing the same thing every 3 months. It changes all the time.
So like, a PhD is different. Obviously, you're doing the same thing but then
that though, it changes.
And then every 6 months, if you're doing different projects, you're doing different things. Like 1 minute you could be doing machine learning in healthcare, you could be doing then machine learning in physics.
And then you're doing a review.
Yeah, so there's loads. So that's why I still think it's for me. But like one thing which I said it here, but I think is, and I spoke to a couple of lecturers about this. I won't name names the other day. Is the impossibility of the post PhD job market. I think that's a big reason people just go, you know what?
Finding a postdoc, finding a lectureship, whatever you might be going for.
It's not even. It's finding a permanent job.
It's all part-time or short contracts, yeah.
So now people just turn around and go, you know what? Instead of arsing around on 6 months contracts, I'll just go to industry.
Why would you put yourself through it?
Interview process is easier.
The job's easier.
Well, it can be.
But it's more predictable.
Working 9 to 5, I get my money every month. I know what I'm working, and that's it. I walk in. That's my job. So I for me think that's a big one that's being underplayed.
And we know quite a few people who've just finished PhDs and ended up working, teaching modules, and each module's part-time, or each module's a short contract, and they're just sort of hopping from module to there's no actual, like, you work for us as a lectureship, but you are this title, and it's just stressful. Like, why would you put yourself through it?
Like, as you say, I probably will, because I enjoy academia. I
used to say you might at one point.
But then I suppose it gets to the point, you say, if I've been doing postdocs for 2-3 years, you can't get a mortgage.
You're like, fuck this, man. Yeah.
In the end, I'll be what? In 2-3 years from now, I'll be nearly 30. If it gets to the point, no one will give you a mortgage, you can't get this, you can't get that, you're still bouncing around looking for contract. It gets to a point where then you do start to question,
what am I doing? Yeah.
This is getting to a point where you need to, because then, especially when you start getting a bit older, it's not just about, this is getting very adulty, but it's not just about you, is it, anymore? It's like, how do you progress in life? It's not fair, because then there's a whole thing at the minute with, it's called trailing spouses, whereby, say if you have an academic spouse, or say you have a spouse whose job, like say military, say if you're a military husband, military wife, you follow them around the world or around the country, so then they sacrifice their career
for yours.
So then you have to ask yourself the question, is that fair? So then this whole kind of melting pot comes in, doesn't it, where there's so much to consider that people may in the end just go, you know what, there's too much going on now for me to kind of pursue this in essence kind of student feeling lifestyle at 30 odd. I need to have something concrete.
Most academics that look comfortable as well, they don't seem to be from this generation. They seem to be from previous ones who've been sitting in a position for 20 years.
Well, that's what I was saying with the lecturers I spoke to the other day. They were saying 10 years ago, getting a full-time position was massively easier
than now.
It's apparently back then, getting a postdoc was nigh on impossible. Like, it was dead hard.
But getting a full-time
getting a full-time job was dead easy.
So you might not get a postdoc off your PhD, but you might get a lectureship doing something.
Or like, say if you, like, getting a postdoc was dead hard, they're competitive, but then once you got a postdoc, getting a
shit was piss.
A full-time job is dead easy. Whereas now the problem you've got is everyone's got a PhD, everyone's got publications, everyone does talks, everyone's got awards, everyone's got this, everyone's got
a Twitter profile or sort of.
Everyone's got GitHub profiles. Everyone's got like what stands out, what stands you out now. And then because there's so many people in the space, hundreds of people apply for every job role.
Yeah.
How do you narrow it down? And then that's why you get this whole culture of I can hop from postdoc to postdoc because the requirements are because less people are going to want to do those 6-month things. It's easier to get them.
I know you're right, lads, and I think another thing on top of the lack of positions, which I think, what was the original question?
What do you think is the biggest kind of reason PhD students flip from wanting to stay in academia and that to move into, say, go into industry?
During my PhD, I think you cannot start. You've just admitted like you've become disillusioned a little bit with it.
To a point, yeah.
That's what I mean. I don't think that can't happen to you. Like,
what it does is it opens your eyes to the reality
because you experience it. Like
of what academia
just the nature of everything. Like, you know, you might be overweight and you get the gym and you think in 2 weeks I'll have abs. Like a reality kicks in 10 days in where you're looking at yourself going, I don't have abs yet.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It takes a lot more than just turning up for 10 days to get these abs or whatever the fuck your goal is. But I've become a bit disillusioned with academia, and my main problem is with it is one of them sort of lends itself to this podcast a little bit. One of them's the bureaucracy of academia and the constant form filling, reporting. People think because you're a researcher, you spend all your time researching. Most of it's just doing bullshit, man. Like, that's literally what it is. I mean, in my opinion, that's what it is. Probably get in trouble for that. But, like, telling people what you're going to do all the time, like, to prove that you're doing so, and it's just like, just let me do it.
Like,
Stop asking me.
The thing is, I get the function and the purpose.
Oh, totally.
But I think, me again personally, is that I got told off for this one once. I think the level at which you have to demonstrate all these mad things is utterly overstated within the process, because the amount of times I've spent just writing up what I'm going to do, as you say, instead of doing it, it's
and then even think of it from if you're a scientist who's really interested in lab work, for example, in industry, most of the ethics to work in that lab is all put in place for you. It's all done. And you just have to literally turn up and like collect your data and work on it.
Yeah.
Or if you're a data scientist
following a guideline type thing,
who wants access to a big data set in industry, it's their data. They'll just give you it. That you've got access anyway because you work there now, and you might have to go through a few things, but you'll get access. In academia, it's this constant, like, what's putting me off is this constant trail of people chasing funding, chasing access to data, chasing.
Yeah.
And it seems like 80% of the time is put into the chase, and 20% actually doing the science.
Because it's one of the things. Yeah, I agree, because that's one of the main benefits of academia is they've got the money. So they can just pay for stuff. So whereas in academia...
In industry, do you mean?
Yeah, that's what,
yeah.
In industry, they've got the money, so they can pay for stuff. In academia, you've got to chase the funding to be able to do your work. Because you could have a brilliant idea, but then who pays for postdocs, who pays for data, who pays for publications? Because if you don't publish, what was the point in doing the work? Because if you didn't publish, it didn't exist. Then who pays for your time, not just the postdoc's time? Then who pays for server time? Who pays for other tech that needs to be bought? Travel, conferences. Who pays for that for this project? Whereas if you work in industry, 9 times out of 10 you'll go to work for an industry with a research question, and it's all just there.
You're right, lads. And the comments I made around relating to this podcast, the other thing that's put me off a little bit is the stuffiness of academia. Everyone's a little bit too square. Everyone's a little bit too scared to say what they actually think. Everyone's scared to say what they feel, give an opinion on something that they think might be happening because they're scared to go against the grain, scared to do, and it's just like, not even that, like people feel like everyone's just a bit too in a shirt and tie. And I see
what you're saying.
And I just, I'm just a relaxed guy, man, and I like to swear. I like to just say what I want. That's why I want to do this podcast, because I want to show you that, like, we're not all, like, super boxed up and, like, and you know what? A lot of people I work with aren't this, but I've seen people that are like that. Maybe it's because I don't know them that well. Maybe it's, but it just is all a bit too prim and proper for me, and I'm not prim and proper at all.
On that,
I'm from Crocs at Liverpool. Like, that's personal. Like, maybe that's just me, but like,
no. But on that point, like, I'm the same as you. Like, I say kind of what I want, how I want it.
Yeah.
And like, I don't see the point, because if I'm not going, oh fucking hell, it's not genuine. That is kind of who I am, right? But also, I think there are so many people in academia who are just brilliant people, funny people, but then you can't be like that in the industry, and I think that takes away a lot from the potentially what can be done, because people's personalities allow things to grow more.
But branded, and like, and then you see people who become famous academics and like science educators. They're not always the most brilliant scientists. They're the most brilliant people, in the sense that they can communicate their research in a way. Like, you look at someone like, I don't know, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I
think he's class him.
I love him, but like, he's not the most amazing physicist ever. He's not fucking found how to quantify fucking general theory of relativity with quantum fucking physics. You know, he's not bridged that gap, but he communicates.
He's a great
amazingly.
Science communicator.
And like, there just seems to be too many people who are a bit like lost in the work, and like, that's because they're great researchers, but it's just a bit like, where's the part? Where's the fun?
No,
you know what I mean? Like, relax.
To me, I'm a person who, like, for me, I couldn't work in an office where everyone was stuffy and horrible. My supervisory team are great, as I've said. Like, we all get on, we have a laugh. We have the personability of it all, right?
Same, my supervisory team are boss.
But like, if I was with certain other people in academia who I've witnessed, I'd want to pull my eyes out.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to stay and do my PhD.
Same.
Because I thrive when I'm happy, and there's this, everyone can be themselves, and then you get a genuine understanding of people.
Yeah.
When you lose that, I think you lose a lot more than just the communicator, but you lose so much.
You're right, lads. So I think rounding up, I think money is something that disillusions people. I think people get involved in research and become disillusioned with the bureaucracy. I think people become disillusioned with the job prospects. And I think people sometimes, as we say, maybe that's what's going to happen with me. Sometimes people's characters don't fit into this world. It's a very prim and proper world at the moment.
Oh yeah, big time.
And maybe people think I'm not. I like doing the science, I love the research, and people find the little alleys where they've got these little like utopias within it, but a lot of people never find them, and that's why they get off, because they're just like, I just have better somewhere else.
It's not for me.
It's not for me.